All right, everybody. We are live. I am fired up today, to be honest. This is an awesome guest to have on the show. I'll just, name a couple things. He's currently the founder, started it, founder of CrossFit Linchpin. If any of you guys are into CrossFit, he's definitely a voice, a face you've probably seen before. He's been a CrossFit Games athlete, a former Navy SEAL, husband, father, and I believe another child soon.
Correct.
Exciting. None other than Pat Sherwood. Pat, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, Shane. I truly appreciate it. And your listeners or viewers probably don't know. I think you should get an award for perseverance. I feel like I did not make it easy for you to finally just track me down and just finally be like, look, we doing this or not, which was of no fault or of your own and no malice on my part. Just I needed to be better about communicating, man. So I appreciate you just staying at it.
You know what, Pat? Everyone is crazy busy, especially people who you want to talk to. So I always appreciate just honesty, transparency, and just, if it can't work, it can't work. And if it does work, then great. And no, I'm pumped to have you on. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're crazy busy and you got a lot going on. So I totally get that.
Yeah, no problem. I was, when you first reached out initially, I get reached out to by people every now and then, and that runs the gamut, right? Because
Sure.
it's not a lot of people have a podcast these days, and um, you know, they're not all created equal. And I remember you saying that you had Fraser on, so I sent him a quick text and was like, "This Shane guy, should I do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, he was a good dude. I had a good time." I was like, "Okay, good to go." So that was you get the thumbs up from Matt Fraser. So that's a good thumbs up to get.
Hey, I appreciate that, and thank you, Matt, if you listen to this, because
Yeah,
that's a big thumbs up. So appreciate it. No,
exactly.
I felt bad too. If you listen to that one, Matt, came on and I think we did like a little over an hour, and then we lost power. We had like a tornado come
Yes, I
through.
remember that.
Yeah, so I literally we couldn't redo it for almost a week, and then we came back on and did a while. But no, he's a great dude, and everyone that listens to this, they've heard me talk about him. He's a good guy.
100%.
So no, I appreciate it. Do you I kind of gave a little intro. Do you mind giving everyone just kind of a little introduction to yourself and anything I missed or anything you want people to know about you up front, and then we'll just dive in.
Man, I think you nailed it. Yeah. Owner of CrossFit Linchpin. That's been around, I think, since 2014. I worked for CrossFit HQ for maybe about 14 years, I want to say. So that was a huge part of my life and development as well. Prior to that, military. And yeah, I've got two amazing boys who are just fantastic. They're my entire world. They do their best to keep me from being a workaholic. And they're my stepkids. My wife had them from a previous marriage, and they are utterly and completely fantastic. And now my wife is pregnant with what will be our daughter. So we'll have
Oh wow.
stepkids, biological kids, real brothers, half brothers and sisters, and then there's shared custody between two households, and running a business and trying to stay in shape. And so it's you know, when I try to be real and talk about like juggling a crazy hectic life and trying to maintain some level of fitness while doing it, and that's just the daily grind, man. The daily
Yeah.
grind.
Well, congratulations, man. And that's
Yeah,
exciting.
thanks. It's
You're gonna have
exciting.
another girl in the house to balance things out.
I know. I'm looking forward to it because the boys are just insane 24 hours a day, limitless energy. So people who have raised girls have told me like, you just might forget that, she might just find her in the room coloring for 30 minutes quietly. I was like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. I'm used to people jumping off furniture or throwing a football through a window. So
Right.
I'm sure it will have its own unique set of challenges. People
Okay.
told me that the
Yeah.
teenage years will be interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
um,
Right.
but
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, we'll see, man. It's all good.
Well, congratulations. That's so exciting. And I'm sure that's going to be a wild life change, but as
Oh
we just
yeah.
talked about before we started, it seems like life these days is just it's changing all the time and just take it with what it's worth and keep rolling.
Oh man, right. Whoever said, the only thing constant is change, and that's that's the deal. Life is
Yeah.
just a constant desire to just keep pushing the ball forward.
Right.
And that's every now and then it might stop, but just don't let it roll backwards. Just keep
Yeah, that's a good way to
keep
think about
keep
it.
keep exerting forward pressure on it to the best of your ability.
Right. No, I love that. That's a good point. Um, so we can jump in. I obviously have a couple CrossFit questions just because I think you're one of the few people who when I started getting people on here like Matt, I was like, Pat's one of the few people I really respect your opinions
I
and
appreciate
just,
that.
you just have puts a lot of time into there. So a few of those. And then, for people who don't know, Pat has basically a background that I didn't know a ton about until we started talking on the phone. So we'll get into some of that. I'm excited to
Okay.
talk a little real estate and a little finance on the back end there too.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start off. So this is a really simple question, but I've actually gotten a lot of questions from my listeners who aren't CrossFit people per se and don't
Okay.
practice, the CrossFit movements, functional fitness. They're probably more, just so you know, I grew up in Indiana, and not that Indiana is not a state of CrossFit, but a lot of the people I ran around with and grew up with, I would say they're more of like they go to the LA fitness and do a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of the cardio, do a little bit of bodybuilding. So wanted to know if you could just quickly give I'm sure it could be a pretty much a one liner. I've heard you say it before, but what is CrossFit and like, how did you get into CrossFit?
You know, it's funny because we used to have to lecture, for this at a living for a living in the level one seminars, and there's, hour-long lectures about it. And then we'd be at the end of the day, maybe still wearing our red CrossFit trainer shirts when we'd be in the elevator of the hotel. And
Okay.
somebody would be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, hey, CrossFit, what is that?" And you've got 20 seconds before the elevator reaches the next floor, the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And so we just say, it's the most fun and effective strength and conditioning program you can do. Go to, go check it out. That's it. That'd be the
Oh,
whole
okay.
thing, which, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Love it.
that simple, which is true. It is, as far as I'm concerned, it's the most fun and effective strength and conditioning program. Like, I think a misconception is that CrossFit is just conditioning, and that's not the case. It's strength and conditioning. And I would say it's the most effective from everything that I've done. Nothing works better.
Okay.
And from back in the day, I grew up kind of maybe doing what you're saying your friends did, the
Yeah.
classic. I'd go to Gold's Gym,
Yes.
and
That's
Monday and Thursday was chest and tris, Tuesday and Friday was back and buys, Wednesday and Saturday was legs and shoulders, and you'd sprinkle in cardio, you'd sprinkle in abs. I mean, that was all my life pre-CrossFit,
okay.
and it was wildly different, and from having that background and now seeing this, I'd lose interest every now and then. Wouldn't go to the gym for a couple weeks, be dedicated for a few months, took a week off, but just because of the routine. But with CrossFit being the fun part, I just never lost interest. I think it's the constantly varied part of it. It has kept my interest nonstop for now about 16 years, which is a feat in and of
Wow.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. Excuse me. I always explain to people that's the best way I think to just explain it to people who at least exercise, going from a normal split of, yeah, you have like a chest and back day, buys and tries, legs, and
Right.
you kind of like cycle through. CrossFit they say varied, right? Varied, not random.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's always changing. There's different types of movements. There's different modalities. There's
Right.
different, whether it's
I
a strength or heavy day versus a long endurance workout. It's always changing.
And I think that's one of the obstacles to CrossFit is, people might be, I don't think most people have a good understanding of what it actually is.
Yeah, I
True,
don't think
truly
so.
what it is and why we do what we do. They might have seen a random thing on Instagram or a random thing on YouTube and think that, they see somebody swinging around on the pull-up bar during Fran. They don't understand what kipping is, and they just dismiss it. Um, and when you actually can sit down and have somebody who says, I don't like CrossFit, you say, well, that's fine. Can you explain to me what it is?
Yeah.
And they usually, quite frankly, cannot. And then you have the explanation of, if they actually have the time, why we do what we do, why the methodology is created the way that it is, why it produces the results that it does. They're like, they keep waiting for the thing that won't make sense. And they're like, okay, well, that makes sense. But, the next thing probably won't. No, okay, well, that makes sense. And by the end of it, you're like, that's it. And they're like, oh, well, okay, well, yeah, well, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it takes a bit to have that conversation with folks.
Sure. Kind of got to like break it down because on the surface, depending on, to your point, what you
Oh,
see or what you watch firsthand on Instagram or at YouTube or whatever it may be,
it
could
looks
be not exactly what it
wildly
is.
different than business as usual. I mean, I remember not seeing CrossFit, but seeing just a movement that most people don't do. Because again, I came from, concentration curls and pec deck and the leg press
Yes.
and things like that. And my buddy, who I was in the Navy with, we were deployed somewhere, we were in a gym, and he used to be a football player, so he was doing hang power cleans. And I'd
Okay.
never seen a hang power clean in my entire life. He wasn't doing CrossFit, just doing hang power cleans. And I remember talking like, "What in the world are you doing, swinging that barbell around?" And he's like, "They're cleans, man. We used to do them in football." And I was like, "You're gonna blow your back out. That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. You don't know what
Yeah.
you're doing. Like all the stuff that now people say
Right.
about CrossFit when they don't know the why." I can relate to it because I was that guy. I remember that thing vividly, and I am astonished now at how profoundly wrong and ignorant I was. Yet, of course, like any good American, I felt the need to give my expert opinion on a subject that I knew nothing about.
Yes.
you know,
How true is
so
that? Yeah.
so it's all good. It's all
Yeah.
good.
No, that's so I mean, I think that's exactly how I first started it. That's how I thought of it. And then I moved to Chicago and I joined our X bar and I started working there. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, Peter and Jared, that's like where they hit the ground running and start like they were at CrossFit everything. And it was all, I mean, it was the bar of CrossFit. So I
Mm-hmm.
like overnight got adopted without knowing into learning why it is what it is. But I think if I wouldn't have gone to RX bar, I don't know if I would have ever like figured it out and learned more about it.
Yeah, it's
So it's
tough
funny.
these days, not to be a these days and back in the day kind of a guy, but it is tough, I think, these days because you might just see something, you might see the games, you might see something, you get interested, you walk into an affiliate, which is great,
Yeah.
and ideally you're in fantastic hands and you learn, and that's great. But you could still show up to the class every day, do the warm, do the workout, do the cool down, go home, make some great friends, get really fit, and go through the motions every day and get the benefit from it without actually getting the why.
Yeah.
Why are we doing what we do? And the why, I don't want to say it used to be more readily accessible, but quote unquote, back in the day, the CrossFit Journal was a huge thing on CrossFit.com, and it would get emailed. If you signed up for it and paid for it each year, you get the month's worth of journal articles in your inbox once a month. And I remember, this is like 2005, 2006. It was a big deal. It'd get emailed to you. You'd print it out, you'd staple it together, and over the course of the month, just read it.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
next month it came in, and you'd read it. And there's just so many gems in those old CrossFit Journal articles that utterly and completely articulate beautifully all the whys. What is fitness?
Oh,
What is work capacity across broad time modal domains? What is relative intensity? All that stuff that can be confusing on the surface. It's all out there, but it just takes some time and effort to sit down and do a whole bunch of reading, which most people are busy and don't
yeah.
have the time to do. And so yeah, but that was a blessing, I think, of my early indoctrination into CrossFit was just getting that CrossFit Journal emailed once a month and just diving into it, head to toe.
Sure. And that's free now, isn't it? Isn't most of those
Yep.
articles are all available
Yep.
online?
Yep, for sure. 100%. And I highly recommend people, just if you're a CrossFit nerd or just want to learn more about it, man, any question I generally get asked by anyone, the answer's in the journal. There's
Okay.
gold in there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've read through some of it. I've always wanted to like go back to the very, very first one, and it takes so long. So I've
Well,
never
that's
done
the
it.
thing. It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. And but anyway, yeah, and everyone's busy, and so you can ideally rely on your coach or your trainer to be the custodian of that knowledge, and then you don't have to do it unless you want to.
Right. That, yeah, 100%. I think you answered, the main thing I wanted to ask. The one that I've had some people on here that actually are, I would say like similar position as you, but instead of CrossFit in like bodybuilding, powerlifting, like they've started businesses that way.
Oh, okay.
Um, we've talked about CrossFit I've talked about it with them, and sometimes I get it's too random. Like you're not hitting
Mm,
enough of the body parts,
mm.
enough times a week to get like ripped, jacked, whatever you want to call it. What is like your thought on like that misconception about CrossFit? Because and obviously before I let you dive in, I think probably the first thing I would assume is, obviously the goals are different things. Like you're
Sure.
in
Right.
some of that, your physique is what you're going for versus CrossFit's also to be able to perform in life and be ready for
100%.
things. But would love just to know your thought because I've had people ask me about that on here that don't do CrossFit and want to know like and you've talked about it ad nauseum if you know Pat, but if I do one of the CrossFit WODs and it takes 20, 30 minutes, am I done? Do I really
Right.
need to what do I need to do for the rest of the hour type of question?
Yeah. So, I mean, getting back to maybe one of the first ones, which sounds like maybe it's coming from more of an aesthetics, more of a bodybuilding background of, looking for whatever, a certain look, a certain pump, the shred of this, the bulging biceps, whatever it happens to be. There are plenty of CrossFitters that have a physique that most people would die for.
Yeah.
So that, you could just point them towards a couple of those people and be like, would you like to look like this person? And the answer is probably yes, male or female. They're doing CrossFit, and, whatever muscle that you want to work, none of them are going to be neglected doing total body movements such as the clean, the deadlift, the back squat, the burpee. I mean, you name it, head to toe, you're going to get it covered. Now, you might not get the hypertrophy unless you specifically go after that. Maybe somebody that's looking to add an inch to their biceps, like if that's a specific goal, yeah, that might not occur. Totally
Yeah.
open and honestly, that might not occur. And but you're right that we're chasing function, where some folks chase form. Like I chased form back in the day on that Monday and Thursday chest and tries routine.
Right.
And now we chase function, and the form follows the function. We're back in the day, I was chasing form. And, if I'm honest, most of us didn't achieve the form that we wanted.
Okay. Yeah.
We were never satisfied, right? You wanted to be bigger, more shredded, or whatever. We were just doing a lot of volume at low intensity, back
Mhm.
in the day.
Right.
Now, we're doing most of us doing a lower volume at a higher intensity, chasing function, and the form for most people anyway follows. It follows quite nicely. And a large part of that also, if people aren't achieving their goals, would probably be a really deep dive and honest look into their diet and their nutrition. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that most of us have far more area to improve outside of the gym than inside the gym.
Love
The,
that.
the one workout a day is great for most folks, and that's all most people need. And if they're not kind of happy where they are, the easy answer, I don't know if it's fair to say the easy answer, but I'll stick with that. The easy answer is, I'm going to do another session. And I'm going to
Yes.
spend another 30 minutes in the gym, where um, most people, I don't think they're doing it maliciously, but I think they lie to you when you say, do you eat well? They're like, oh yeah, crushing it, man. Just eating so well. It's
So clean.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I think if you had like a secret, invisible, whisper quiet drone that followed somebody around and videotaped them for a week, and they had no idea that was happening, and you reviewed the tape, why they weren't achieving their goals would not be mysterious.
Got
It
it.
would be
100%.
very obvious.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I think, incredibly tightening up the diet, and most people need more sleep, honestly. And
Yeah. Those
if you
two are
did
important.
those two things, and you did your one workout a day and poured your heart into it, I think you would get so much more than not getting enough sleep, having a middle of the road diet, and trying to work out an extra 30 minutes a day.
Sure.
But getting back to the form and function thing, what's interesting is, so, I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'8". I weigh about 183, 184 pounds. I'm 45. Back when I was, um, in my early 20s in the Navy as an active duty SEAL, I was obviously still 5'8", weighed 185 pounds. So I was within 2 or 3 pounds of where I am
Oh, wow.
right now.
Yeah.
Working out my entire life, again, the bodybuilding routine, the whole 9 yards. But, the bodybuilding routine, leg press, leg extension, leg curl, like I never did a barbell back squat or a barbell front squat. Like that didn't happen,
Oh,
or
yeah.
definitely didn't do a deadlift or something like that. Again, you did leg extension, leg curl, blah, blah, blah. Um, when I first got into CrossFit, I could not deadlift 300 pounds. Okay.
Okay.
Active duty SEAL, couldn't deadlift 300 pounds. And now, fast forward years later, my body weight has not changed, but my deadlift is between 450 and 500 pounds. So point
Oh,
being,
wow.
I put on maybe 175 pounds on my deadlift and did not change my body weight one single solitary pound. So
That's incredible.
that increase in strength happened with no potentially external change looking, right? which I see as a good thing, given my, my background there from being in the military. I want to be as capable and competent and strong and ferocious as I can, but I don't want to put on an additional 30 pounds to do that. So I
Yeah.
put on that additional 30 pounds. That's an additional 30 pounds. That's great on deadlift day, but I need to carry that on a 10K run. I need to carry that over a 5-day patrol. I need to, then if I get hurt and I go down, my buddy needs to pick up me and my gear that now weighs an additional 30 pounds. He's not happy about that. Then he needs to carry me half a mile through terrain, to
Yeah.
whatever it happens to be like. So I want to have the most capacity possible, um, given all the different things that I want to do, from body weight movements to, conditioning to weightlifting, the whole 9 yards. And so I actually think that's one of the most impressive things about what CrossFit does, really, is just, I kind of see a lot of CrossFitters as, that muscle car that pulls up to the stoplight, but it doesn't have a fancy paint job. It's just
Yes.
primer gray, black wheels. You don't know what's under the hood. And then it just, the light turns green and it just crushes you,
Right.
Whereas there's a
Yes.
lot of people out there that I think I used to be, which was, I had the fancy paint job and the flashy wheels, but the engine under the hood, it wasn't there,
Ah, okay. That's a good way to think.
and
It's a great
so,
analogy. Yeah.
that's kind of, I think that's one of the hidden gems of CrossFit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so you're saying essentially sometimes you could see people who might have a six pack, big arms, whatever, but yeah, they can't lift half the weight of someone who maybe just looks fit still,
Right.
but
And
maybe
there's
isn't
nothing.
like, you know,
Correct. And the other part is, you know, there's nothing wrong with it, right? I mean,
right,
so hey, even if you're like, well, that's great, I hear what you're saying, but I don't care. Bodybuilding's my life, big arms are my life, and that's how I'm gonna roll. Hey,
right.
rock on. You're not sitting on the couch.
Yeah, yeah, true.
It's all good. Like, we're all in the same group of people who are deciding to be active in one way, shape, or form. Do I personally have my biases that think you could potentially spend your time better? Yeah, I mean, that's why I do CrossFit, because I think it's the most effective. But you're out there, you're doing something. So I don't care if you're just an Olympic lifter, just a power lifter, just a bodybuilder, you're just a runner. Like, hey, good on you.
Yeah.
I think there's a better way to optimize your time personally, but we're all doing the same. We're all on the same team.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. No, that's great. And I think that's one of maybe the misconceptions too, is that CrossFit's, kind of this tight-knit group. But I think the more you get to know people who do it and are involved, they want like more. I feel like I try not to talk about it when I hate the people who just like it's all they talk about. But I do like to
Hmm.
get people who I feel like and that's kind of my next question. I do like to talk to the people who aren't active. Like I feel like I hope they would be
Oh
like
yeah.
friends, family, whatever.
Good luck to you with that.
Yeah, right. I know. It's like something I'm always like, come on, you could try it. Like, and so I think that was another question I've been getting a lot is people think, you got to be young and active to get into CrossFit. And I think,
Mm,
and this is a little bit of a plug, but your programming on Linchpin, I think is great, where it has the workouts that you're planning for people who are listening and have never looked at it. And then you have like other options. You have scaled, which is just like either lighter or a movement that's a little simpler for someone who hasn't, maybe
hmm.
mastered that movement. And you also have essentially basically scaled down again to like body weight or very simple,
Sure.
you can explain it better than me. But I think the question really was more around the lines like, what do you tell people who, maybe are a little older or haven't really been fit most of their life, but like want to get healthier? Can they do CrossFit and all that?
I mean, the short answer is they absolutely can. And the best answer is, if they have a small bit of time to have a conversation and maybe a small demonstration, or get them in the garage and get them in the gym, that's the best thing. But you have to, with some folks, depending upon where, what season in their life that they are, you have to calm some fears, right?
Right.
Because they may think, they may see the games, and while that may motivate somebody who's 27 or 32 to walk in to a CrossFit affiliate, if they're 58, they may be like, well, I'm not like those ripped, crazy animals, and I'm not throwing 400 pounds over my head. If that's what CrossFit is, it ain't for me.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
can understand that, and you got to let them know. And this relates back to my old like bodybuilding days, which is, again, form versus function. The training for function, especially as you get older in life, you want to have the ability to live a high quality life for as long as humanly possible on planet Earth. And this is
Mhm.
something you used to say at the level one lectures and all of that. anyone who's been in a nursing home or been in an assisted care facility, most people leave going, I don't ever want to be here.
Yeah.
Like, this is not Disneyland. This is a bad deal.
Right.
And there's could be some terrible metabolic or chronic diseases that put people there, but there are some folks in there that are just decrepit. They're just feeble.
Yeah.
They can no longer navigate stairs on their own. They can no longer go from a seated to a standing position without assistance. You can no longer pick up your groceries off the ground. You might not have a single disease. You're just feeble. You
Right.
can no longer live on your own. You can no longer go on the family vacation. You can no longer play with your grandkids. You can no longer, like, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know anybody that wants to go down that path sooner than they have to. And nobody gets put in the nursing home because they lost their capacity to excel at the pec deck.
Yes. That's
They
true.
lost their ability to squat and they lost their ability to deadlift, and a squat doesn't mean 400 pounds. Getting off the toilet is a squat.
Hmm.
Picking up your grandkid is a deadlift. And when you
Ah, yeah.
explain to people that, these are, regardless of your personal opinion on the squat or the deadlift, whether you think it's the devil and you're going to blow at your back or you think it's great, regardless, life demands that you do it, and you will do it every single day of your life. No one cares what you think about it. And so you can either do it with good technique because somebody taught you how to do it, and with muscles that are strengthened to make it safe and sound, or you can do it with poor technique and weak muscles. The choice is yours.
Got
And
it.
I think
Yeah.
the smart money is, let's start training and practicing the movements that life absolutely demands, that are 100% unavoidable. Let's teach you how to do them well, and let's build up your strength. And
Love
that's
that.
and that's
That's a
you
great
know
way to think about it.
that
That'd be a
usually
great
helps a
clip
lot of
for
people.
people.
Yeah, usually helps a lot of people be like, yeah, I do. We've all got that relative that potentially at Thanksgiving or whatever it happens to be needs help getting off the sofa. You put it, well, that's, you're on a slippery slope.
Right.
If you
Yeah,
can't go from a seated to a standing position, you're in a slippery slope.
for sure. And you can start with just sitting up off the couch. That can be a movement,
Oh
right? I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of
yeah.
the beauty, I think, of CrossFit, right? Is like if you can't squat, you can just go from a seated position to standing 10 times. Like that's like I was explaining to my grandma actually one time. I was
Mm-hmm.
explaining how you can like, anyone can do that. You can scale it down to a simple movement of just that, right? And you guys did that a lot on CrossFit. Like I know
For
some of the
sure.
the videos and stuff you guys posted was even showing a lot of elderly people picking up groceries and getting up and
Yep.
off the couch and that kind of stuff.
It's just use it or lose it. I mean, your body in motion stays in motion. You don't have to
Yeah,
just,
love that.
try to annihilate yourself every day, but you've got to move your body. You've got to, or it will go away.
Yeah. 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 You're very right. No, you're totally right. No, love that. Thank you, Pat. And that's a ton of good, great background on what CrossFit is. The to kind of jump into the next thing is I kind of hinted at it and I mentioned at the beginning and you've mentioned it, but you are the owner of CrossFit Linchpin. So for people who don't know, again, much about CrossFit, I always explain to people, instead of going to like an LA Fitness or a Gold's Gym, CrossFit is built around affiliates, and
Mm-hmm.
they're usually called boxes. What everyone you may have heard that term before. Can you kind of explain to everybody just what CrossFit Linchpin is, and then I think we could probably talk a little bit about how that business structure works with affiliates, and kind of explain to people the differences.
Sure. Yeah. So just like you said, CrossFit gyms are affiliates. It's not a franchise model. And there's, thousands and thousands of them around the world. And CrossFit Linchpin happens to be my CrossFit affiliate. And it's just my garage. You can
Yeah.
have a garage affiliate. And so that's exactly what CrossFit Linchpin is. And I've always loved programming workouts for the longest time. It was just an utter and complete, all consuming passion. And I just post them on my private Instagram account, and people seem to enjoy them. And other people are like, well, hey, why don't you just, affiliate your darn garage? I mean, why not?
Yeah.
You're going to be programming these workouts anyway, just do it. And I was like, okay. So I did that back in 2014 is when I affiliated my garage and just started posting them through CrossFit Linchpin instead of just my personal Instagram account.
Okay.
And it just got a really nice following, which was cool, because it's just as far as I'm concerned, it's just classic, beautiful, unadulterated effective CrossFit. And it was really nice to see that apparently there was a desire for that. So
Sure.
I didn't have any particular intentions of starting a business. Quite frankly, when I did that, it just took off, and I just reacted to the situation is probably a better way to say it. So I was posting this stuff, and then little by little, I just started receiving more and more questions or requests like, hey, what should I do for a warm up?
Hmm.
And every single day, I don't have the time to answer that with 75 different emails every single day. That's not an
Right.
effective use of anyone's time.
Yeah.
What's a good goal time for this workout? Well, hey, what if I don't have pull-ups? What should I do here? Can you give me a scaling option? Like, there was all this additional information that takes a really long time to, it takes a long time just to program, you know, multiple weeks of workouts, let alone then you go back into each one of those days workouts and create, a detailed warm up that matches the stimulus. You figure out the goal times, you figure out what appropriate scaling would be, what would be a limited equipment option if you just have dumbbells, what if you don't have any gear at all, what's an at-home workout, what should then people wanted accessory work, what would be some accessory work that complements this, what about some cool down, what about some stretching, what about some demo videos, so it just, the desire for additional information above and beyond the workout of the day or to complement the workout of the day grew. And maybe you can call that a lesson plan or whatever it happened to be. And so I was like, well, this isn't scalable,
Okay.
answering these
Yeah.
one-off questions here and there. Like, there's no way I won't have time to program the workouts. And so that's when the private track basically became created. So if you go to our website or go to our Instagram page, the workouts are just posted there for free every single day. Enjoy them, have a blast, get fit, have fun. If you want, all of that additional information that I just said, then that's the private track, and all that information is delivered to your laptop or your cell phone through, it's hosted on Beyond the Whiteboard.
Yeah.
And so
Love it.
all that just comes right to your phone. And it's been fantastic, and we've had just steady, consistent growth and grown a beautiful, awesome, positive, encouraging, supportive, like worldwide community, believe it or not, on our Facebook page, which most people associate Facebook with a dumpster fire, which I actually am on board with, because I resisted starting the private Facebook group for the longest time because it's like, nothing good happens on Facebook.
Right.
No, we are not starting that. And this one gentleman, Nick, was quite persistent. He's like, please, like, we'll give it a whirl. And man, I have to navigate through the dumpster fire to get to our private page, like, but then
Okay.
once I
Yeah.
get there, man,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And they're just people supporting each other, sharing stories, offering encouragement. Hey, like, I don't have this piece of gear. What does somebody else recommend? And so it's been interesting from my perspective, since I didn't know where it was going to go,
Sure.
or how well it would or would not be received, to see how warmly it has been received. Because I don't know how to phrase this. I didn't want to compromise when I started CrossFit Linchpin.
Okay.
I felt like, I think there's a lot of junk on social media. I think there's a lot of
Smidge.
junk in the fitness industry. I think a lot of it is flash and sexy photos, but it's not the gritty, not sexy, not flashy, hard work that applied consistently yields results.
Yes.
But you got to stick with it. And everyone goes after the flash. And I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. I want to do what I know, and what, all my experience through CrossFit in the military has taught me works. And those people that are on board with doing the real stuff that works, well, welcome aboard. And if you're looking for the flash, there's plenty of places that you can find it, but it ain't going to be here. And I'm like, and I don't know if that's going to be a popular decision,
Sure. Oh yeah.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
And so, but I was like, but I have to do it that way, because doing it any other way, I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So,
Yes.
so let's do that. And I mean, you know, we're going to do dumbbell thrusters, and we're going to go to the track, and we're going to sprint. CrossFitters don't like to sprint. I don't care, like, because it works and it's
Yeah.
effective. So I'm not going to not program it because people don't like to do it and they want to avoid it. Like, it's effective. So we're going to program what is effective. And if you do it, well, you will reap the benefits. And so I just kind of wanted to have that uncompromising deal of the truth, if you will.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit of a risk, but so far so good.
Love that. And what do you tell people, like when people listen to this and they want to know if they don't, follow you or talk like follow Linchpin, what do you mean by effective? I guess how do you frame like what that means for them if they're
Yeah.
because if they start to do Linchpin?
So, I mean, classic, beautiful CrossFit methodology for the overwhelming majority of the population is, we've summarized before, is like living your life in couplets and triplets.
Got it. Love that.
Short,
Yeah.
high intensity, couplets and triplets, mixed modality triplets, go heavy at least once a week, every now and then go long, something else that nobody
Mm.
likes to do,
Hmm.
and realizing that intensity wins over volume, which
Yeah,
is
I think
another
that's like
thing,
the big thing that we can
a
talk about.
huge
Yeah.
thing. And there's a lot of, again, even if you're doing more volume, potentially unnecessarily in my case, getting back to what we said about the bodybuilding, you're still not sitting on the couch, right? Like
Yeah.
we're still on the same team, pursuing the same goals. But I just think more people have got lost in the more is better thing. And I don't know why. Maybe they're following their games heroes who do a tremendous amount of training because they have to,
Yeah.
like, yes, they do CrossFit. They're CrossFit Games athletes. Yes, we do CrossFit, but that does not mean that we are the same. You know, I
Yes.
drive a car and Indy Champion drives a car. Like we're not the same.
Yeah.
Like,
Great analogy. Yeah.
it's not the same. And so, but I think it's very easy. Human beings are curious creatures, but I think it's very easy, and I can follow the bouncing ball, which is, well, hey, I do CrossFit and I look up to athlete A, B, or C. They're my hero. I want to be like my hero. I follow that. Makes sense. So what does my hero do? I'm going to start mimicking my hero. Your hero probably does a lot of working out.
Yeah.
That does not mean that you should. And it
Yeah.
does not mean that it's good for you in the long term and your knees and back and shoulders and health. And then you'll eventually, even if those hold up, you'll probably mentally get burned out and get sick of CrossFit for a while. And I've just seen it go wrong more times than I've seen it go right. But it's very popular. Every day
Ah.
we're going to lift heavy.
Yeah.
Every day we're going to do this, followed by part A, by part B, by part C. And like, holy cow, look at all this. Uh, I don't think that's effective. Just
Okay.
now getting
Yeah.
back to what you're saying, like what's effective, quite frankly, most people probably need to do less, but they need to do it better.
Ah. Yeah.
You need to do
Okay.
it with more focus, with more virtuosity, and with more intention. And it's getting back to what we said previously. If you're not achieving your goals, it's easy to say, well, I should throw in another 30-minute session. Probably not. You should probably tighten up that diet.
Yeah.
You should probably stretch more, and you should probably get some more sleep.
Isn't that funny that those three things, not to cut you off, but I feel
Right.
like diet, stretching, sleep are probably the least talked about, least
They're
sexy
not
parts.
sexy. They don't look good on Instagram.
No, like, oh, I
But
got
hitting,
9 hours of
hitting
sleep
a
last night. Yeah.
hitting a full squat snatch looks really good on Instagram,
Yeah. Yeah.
so let's do more of that. So again, I can follow the bouncing ball, um, but I wasn't going to cater that because I knew that wasn't the way, that wasn't the
Hmm.
path. And so I was going to lay out the path. And for those that want to come along, roger that.
Love it. Yeah, that's super helpful, I think, for people who've always wanted to learn, or maybe even someone like me. It's cool to hear you like explain that because I feel like I've gone down the rabbit hole for a few years now, and but it's good to hear that perspective. So for you, you worked at CrossFit HQ while you started CrossFit Linchpin. Was it kind of like a side hustle at first? It sounds like you were like, I'm programming anyway. I'm sharing this info with people, so I'm just going to start this, and we'll see what happens. Was that kind of the methodology of kicking it off the ground?
I guess so, but again, it wasn't intentional. As far as I knew when I started CrossFit Linchpin in 2014, I was just going to post the workouts on the Linchpin Instagram channel, on a cool little photo, and that was going to be that.
Right.
And I didn't know that it would grow into a business. I didn't know that it would grow into a community. I had no idea, so
Mhm.
as it did, it very much did turn into exactly that, a small side business till eventually a big side business till eventually now, my full-time occupation.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's so wild to hear the stories of people who, do something out of passion that then, just keep putting in the work and then turns into something more. Was there a reason I've used Beyond the Whiteboard, obviously with Linchpin, and I did even before I was involved with Linchpin. Is there a reason you went with that app or anything with them? I know those are good guys over there, but just curious on the why of the platform you picked.
Well, you basically nailed it there. The good
Okay.
guys. I mean,
Yeah.
Mo and John are just they're top-notch human beings,
Yeah.
and the longer that I live here on planet Earth, the more I am impressed by just good people, people who have integrity, people who are transparent, people who do what they say that they will do. Their word actually means something. And not to be cynical, but sometimes it's hard to find those people.
Yeah, it can be.
When you
Yeah.
do, you cherish them.
Yes.
And that's what Mo and Jonathan have been from Beyond the Whiteboard. They're just, they solid, they care about the community, they do things for the right reason. And then on top of that, a wonderful side benefit is I just think their software is top notch,
Yeah, it's
like
great.
just top notch, so you've got that software combined with great folks that truly care about the CrossFit community, and it was a relatively easy decision that I've never regretted.
Got it. Yeah. No, it's great. I always am impressed. I had a buddy who sent me one of your, was on Beyond the Whiteboard. He's like, you should check out Linchpin. This is, probably 2 years ago. And I remember clicking on it and I signed up for the private track and I was just like blown away with like the amount of information that you, number one, include. And then obviously what the app is able to do. I mean, you talked about the beginning,
Hmm.
but there's like a whole warm up section. There's videos that show you how to do stuff. There's cool downs. And then obviously, like for me, I think one of the things that's been addicting is just without being focused on it, it quickly shows you like what you've previously done with that workout. I always found that like exercising, no matter what type of working out you did, always like whether it was like in the notebook or writing it down on your notes app, like trying to keep track of just like what you're
Oh
doing,
yeah.
how much like times, weights, all that stuff. I think Beyond the Whiteboard and the way you guys partnered, it's flawless. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, they make me look way more professional than I am. It's, I mean, that's which is a side benefit there.
That's so
No
funny.
doubt.
Yeah. So I think one of the questions I've always wondered. So with this, you're using Beyond the Whiteboard to help program, reach obviously a big audience, hopefully, and it continues to grow. Has this business for you, if we get a little more into the weeds, is it pretty like minimal as far as like operating expenses and in the running it? You know what I mean? Obviously, like it's your time and it's a lot,
Hmm.
it's everything in your head that's getting into the programming. But as far as like
Right.
people wondering from like, I think one of the things that I thought would be interesting to talk about with you is, owning an actual physical, box, an actual affiliate that has, hundreds of members
Yep.
versus having your garage affiliate run through Beyond the Whiteboard is very, very different as far as like,
Hmm.
expense wise, really is the way I think about it. And just getting CrossFit athletes to come in. Can you maybe explain a little bit of that? I think people would find that super interesting just to know the differences between the two. And then I'm sure I'll have some questions from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely low operating costs. I got to pay my mortgage, obviously, but
Yeah.
other than that, I need my phone, camera, laptop, but all things considered, those are relatively small expenses. The greatest expense, if you want to call it that, or resource, is just my time. I mean, it is, as it has grown, as I mentioned before, from just the workout of the day to all the other aspects that are included as well, which, you just don't scratch down on a piece of paper. Like all of them require research, mathematics to figure out, the times, the loadings, how they interplay, and they all need to be uploaded to various platforms to go to the website, to Instagram, to the private track, to be on the whiteboard, to, and then all the videos to, so we make a video that goes along with every single workout explaining it.
Every day.
So
Yeah.
every single solitary day,
Yeah.
that workout, that video could be 5 minutes, could be 15 minutes,
Right.
but it happens every day. It needs to get filmed every day. And, you can't just click on the camera and start talking and hope that it goes well, as
Right.
you well know, running a
Yeah,
pod,
right.
like there's prep. People probably look at your podcast like, you just talk for a living. How easy is that?
I had someone ask me recently, they were like, how much time do you put into it? And I'm like, I mean, you got to think to get you on here, right? I had to like come up with like, oh, Pat would be an awesome guest. You have to like get a hold of them, which no one understands how hard sometimes that can be. You got to find time, you got to schedule time. I mean, there's
Mhm.
so much. And then after you actually record it, you got to edit it and get it up. And I mean, people have no idea usually when it comes to content creation,
No,
how much
that's
time it
they
really
only,
takes.
they just see the, you know, they just see the food getting delivered to the plate in the restaurant. They don't see the kitchen,
Yeah. Oh,
and the
you got
management
all
and
the
the food
analogies
delivery.
today.
And I mean, it's just, and anything which looks, the goal is to make it look smooth and easy.
Yeah.
Who doesn't,
Because you
you
want to
want to
get
look
in,
like a
you want to get the info
professional.
you need, and you want to go do your workout, right?
Anything which looks smooth and easy didn't happen by accident,
Yes.
So again, the videos, not, it is a, it's a full time now, the biggest expense of my time. It is a full time. I get on my phone or my computer. If I don't get on by 7 a.m., like I'm upset with myself, so like my
Okay.
work day starts, at 7 a.m.,
Got it.
and it goes usually till 5 p.m., let's say. Now I'll break in there to go work out, during the day. And there's certainly interruptions, when, kids come in, Zoom classes are down. You help me restart my computer. How do you do this math problem? I mean, so
Yeah.
there's certainly interruptions all day long, but it just takes a tremendous amount of time to put out, as I said, all those various things have been added over the years to the private track to make sure that they all flow together and there's this symbiotic relationship, and everything is in this very beautiful yet challenging tightrope balancing act to walk of giving enough to stress the body, because stressing the system delivers an adaptation. So you
Right.
have to stress it, but you don't want to stress it too much.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to overtrain people, break them down, they'll get tired and they'll leave, and that's no good. But then if you don't stress it enough, they're not going to get the adaptation, they're not going to get the results, they're not going to be happy. And so all of those 28 different things need to have that flow together, so there's a lot of, even once everything's quote unquote done, it's not like, then there's, you got to go back and revise and try to poke holes in what you did, and stress test it and make sure that it's good. And then all the video, editing and uploading and putting it on YouTube, and there's a podcast and there's Instagram stories, and it's I had no idea what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was
Well,
getting
like
into.
there's just a few things you're doing there for this.
I
Yeah.
love it. I, again, it's my passion, and I absolutely adore it and love it. And it's an honor to help people on their road to long-term health and fitness. But it's a full-time gig, and then I'm not complaining, so hopefully it doesn't come off as this. But there's an interesting line to walk, because you can go down, you can never stop working,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
I
Because
run into
especially
that
when
sometimes. It's,
your community is worldwide and it's global, there's no one time zone that it's operating in,
someone's
so
turned on all the time.
yeah, so something's coming in at 9 p.m. and you get that alert on your phone, and there's a desire, even though you're trying to have some time with your family, to go into the office and start working again, and not
100%.
let it wait until the morning. And all of this content and everything that we're talking about, it it never stops. There's
Yeah.
never, 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 never an off day. Even if it's a quote unquote rest day, we're still working behind the scenes on the programming, the goal times, the scaling, the videos, the podcasts, and all that stuff. And it has to happen on Christmas and New Year's, and my birthday, my kid's birthday, and the kid's soccer game. And like there's never, that train keeps moving no matter what. And if you don't keep up with it, you can get behind fast,
Yeah.
so it's been an interesting deal, just trying to learn how to balance all that, and be a husband, and be a stepdad, and keep myself in shape and not go crazy, and ideally have
It's a big part of it.
a very, very small amount of free time each day to do a bit of reading or something. And so yeah, it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
wonderful, but it has its incredible benefits and it has its incredible challenges.
Definitely. Are you it sounds so you said you usually get up as I've seen, I think we talked about it. We talked about it a little bit. You usually get up, you have a little morning routine, I know, and then you said you get after it around 7. Is do you like the break up in the middle of the day to work out versus like I know a lot of people and I this week I kind of got back into like working out first thing in the morning,
Good
testing it
for
out just to
you.
like well it's funny because sometimes I feel like I'm more productive longer because I don't have that big break. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's sometimes it's good to kind of let your brain out of just work all day. Then you're so tired by the end of the night, I think too.
No,
So I
for
don't know.
sure.
Just
I
curious your
wish
thoughts.
I wish I was an early morning workout person, because it's so nice to have it done.
Yeah,
You know,
that's my favorite part.
I feel like I can't. I probably have some sort of psychological disorder. Like I have to get the workout done, and if it's not done, it's looming over my head. Got to do it. Got to do it. Got to do it.
It
Haven't
like
done
puts
it
you in a
yet,
bad
and
mood, right?
it can, and
Yeah.
as the day goes on, usually, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So, of course, as the day goes on, you usually get more busy, not less busy.
Always.
Things happen, life gets in the way, it pops up. So now, if you didn't get that workout done, well, there's just more things piling up that are going to prevent you from doing it. And that causes anxiety and stress. So, man, just to like knock it out first thing in the morning, if you can do that and you're part of that crew, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. 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 I was gonna say, especially if you can get your sleep. That's always my challenge. I
Mm-hmm.
always end up, end of the candle on the night before. I got to make sure I'm like in bed at a certain time,
Oh,
or then the whole
if
next
I
day is thrown off.
if I could have a superpower and not sleep or only need like 2 hours a night, that would be phenomenal. I
That'd
would
be
love
it.
that.
I'm with
It'd
you
be it'd be
100%.
great.
I started wearing a Whoop. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. I've had it for a year. I think it's made me like respect sleeping a lot more. But then when I wake up, it's funny because it kind of gives you like a recovery every day, like 1 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, like today I woke up in the red, which is like below 33%. And I don't know why, because I ate well last night, didn't have any alcohol or anything. Got decent amount. I think I got, 7.5 hours of sleep, which for me, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so sometimes I'm like, well, it's funny. It's like a reminder, but I'm still going to go do my workout. I'm not going to like take the day off. Maybe I
Right.
should, you know what I mean? So that's always tough too. It's like, I think people, get in the habit. So to your point, it's like, if you can build it in during your day, if you can build it
Mm-hmm.
in whenever it works for you. I think that's such a good point that like life never gets less busy. So you got to just,
Oh,
to me, it's got to be like a non-negotiable part of my day. Like I'm doing it at some point, whether it's night, morning, lunch, whatever.
correct. Amen.
It's
Yeah,
on the
100,
calendar.
100%. Yep. I've
Yeah.
got a workout that I've got to do today that everyone's reporting a high level of discomfort
Oh,
from. And so I've got a little bit of dread, I know that's
that could
looming
be a
in my
downside of
future.
working out at lunch is you probably hear about what everyone thought of the workout. So whether it's
Mm-hmm.
good or bad, you're like, well, I already know how this is probably going to go.
Exactly.
That is too funny. For people, and we mentioned it a little bit for on this episode. You worked at CrossFit HQ. You got Linchpin off the ground. Can you explain to people just what was the decision? And sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but and you said it a little bit ago, but you decided to go full time with CrossFit Linchpin.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of the founders I've had on here of a company, a business, and I always like to ask, what was like the conversation, whether you had it with your wife or whoever, where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna stop doing this and I'm gonna go invest in myself and I'm gonna do it. Do you remember that, or do you remember like just kind of the process and how you came to it? I think with this specifically, it's really interesting to understand like how you decided to. Because it's funny is most people go from like maybe a corporate job they don't love to go do their dream if
Mm-hmm.
it works. It sounds like, I mean, you working for CrossFit, I know there's tons going on in that world, but you're
Mm-hmm.
still in CrossFit. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you're kind of working for a place I know you believe in and all that to go do your own thing still in the same world. So I thought it'd be interesting just to know kind of your mentality and your thought to like go do what you just did.
You know, and to a large degree, the decision was made for me
Okay.
with, coronavirus and the takeover from one ownership to another.
Right.
It was starting to get to the point where, my wife and I would have these conversations because one of the two things wasn't going to be done well. There's just not enough hours in the day, and we were already there, and it was not going to be good. I was going to drop the ball in something, and quite frankly, I knew that it wasn't going to be CrossFit Linchpin, just because I just enjoy it too much. Like
Mhm.
it's just absolutely phenomenal. And then with the corporate change at HQ, there was a whole bunch of reorganization of personnel, and I was part of the personnel that was not moving forward with the company. And so it kind of made that decision for me,
Got it.
which,
Yep.
for better or for worse, was a blessing in disguise, because then I just allowed me to pour my heart and soul into this without absolutely missing a beat. And yeah, it's been nothing but, I guess it could have been a very potentially scary and terrifying time, but because of CrossFit Linchpin and everything that we've been putting into it for years and years, it was actually great, because now I could do nothing but 100% dedicate and focus on it and make it the best possible. So it was again, life is crazy sometimes with the ups and the downs and things
Right.
that you don't see coming, and sometimes, and I didn't know how I was going to eventually make that decision. Like, I knew I wouldn't work for CrossFit for the rest of my life. I knew there was going to be some point in time where, our paths were going to split amicably, but it was either going to be on their call or on my call,
Yeah.
and it, had, coronavirus and the change in leadership not occurred and the restructuring of the company not occurred, I could have potentially, it's easy to stay someplace that's, if you're just staying, and you get a paycheck every 2 weeks and you could just stay for a long time. And
Yeah.
I
Right.
potentially could have stayed there for maybe longer than I should have and delayed the opportunity for me to really take my business to the next level if the decision was left to me. And maybe that's why that it went the way that it did. Maybe the higher powers are like, you know what, we're going to make this decision for you.
Yeah. We'll make it
So
easy.
we'll make it easy. And it's been fantastic. It has been absolutely a blessing.
No, I'm happy to hear that. That's awesome. Happy for you guys. Do you think so? I think everyone has obviously different situations, and this one sounds like it ended up being a leap spring for good.
Hmm.
Was that partially because were you at a place with Linchpin where financially, like you said at the beginning, like you could still pay your mortgage, could still like take the leap and try to keep growing it? And if, I think what would your perspective have been maybe if it was earlier on? Like I always wondered, timing's everything. And it's
Sure.
like if it would have happened, years earlier, maybe where the platform wasn't at the point it's at now, like any idea or tips for people who maybe are at that stage today that they're dealing with their own thing, just how you would
Yeah,
have thought through it?
absolutely. It certainly would have been more stressful. There's no doubt about it. Like,
Okay.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, but I also am a big believer. I would have had to scramble, but I've got no doubt that I would have found a different job.
Yeah.
Because, and again, this is not a phrase that I coined, but I am truly a believer that your net worth is determined by your network, right? I mean, so
Love that. Yeah.
if you are in a good circle of people and you're keeping in contact with business owners, people out there doing things, then you've got a tremendous support network that, heaven forbid, something does happen. Even though it could be scary, you shouldn't feel that you're all alone out in the middle of the ocean in a raft by yourself, right?
Yeah. Right.
There's three, four, five people that you should be able to reach out to and be like, hey, my life changed. This is what's happening. Do you have anything going on that I can assist with or add value to? Or do you know anyone that maybe you could put me in contact with? And if you've kept up a good network of individuals, then ideally that situation will sort itself out sooner rather than later and alleviate a lot of that stress.
Got it. Yeah, that's great advice. It's great advice for anyone going through anything. And obviously that's your network is it's almost invaluable to put worth on your network. I always say. I mean, that's something I'm
Hmm.
always focused on is trying to make sure you're always just you said at the beginning, it's always about having, those good people you can trust around you too. It pays off in so many ways you
Absolutely.
don't know.
100%. Yep. It's the world's rough alone.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It is. It really
It'll
is.
beat you up. It'll
Yeah.
beat you up.
Yeah. 100%. So we've talked a ton about CrossFit, a ton about Linchpin. The other thing that we had talked about that I don't know if a ton of people know is you had mentioned to me that you got into real estate in a way.
Mhm.
So would love to just kind of pick your brain on that. We've talked about real estate on here in a couple episodes, but we just love to, see what you've done, what your perspectives are on it. And as always, I'm sure I'll have some questions.
I got into it just by happenstance because back when I was with CrossFit, we had a company 401k.
Yeah. Okay.
And in that 401k, you can put in your distributions each year or whatnot. And there's, cool, fun tools. I think this was with Fidelity, where, pardon me, you can put in like, okay, what's your age now? What age do you want to retire? What's your income now? What's your cost of living now? This is what inflation will be then. How much will you have to have at 60, 65, 70, whatever it happens to be, to maintain a similar cost of living, quality of life? Will
Right.
you go down? Will you go up? And so I found those tools, and I was like, oh, look at this. This is a fun little tool. And I put in the data, and I was like, holy crap. like I am screwed. I'm never going to be able to retire ever in my entire life. Like, I started too late in life. I don't have enough saved up. And
It's like
this is what,
heartburn.
yes, this is
Yeah.
what inflation's going to do. And I'm going to be living in a 1-bedroom shanty, in the
Yeah.
middle of the woods. And this is terrible. And it was very scary. And it was just a big eye opener that I was like,
Okay.
oh no, like I have not had my financial house in order.
Got it.
I just
Okay.
had it on autopilot and never paid any attention to it, and figured somehow, everyone else seems to retire somehow. I guess I will too. I don't know. Beats
Yeah.
me.
Which is common. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was the first step of like, I need to spend less time on Netflix and more time sorting out some actual important things in my life and doing some research and reading some different books and filling my head with actual useful information instead of pop culture.
Right.
And so I don't know how the real estate thing popped up, but I started getting on to the Bigger Pockets podcast
Oh yeah. Great one.
for
Yeah.
that. Yep. And I listened to like at least the first couple hundred episodes. Like I listened to all of them, like just crushed them one after another. And I was like, okay, real estate will be a great vehicle, on top of the stock market. And I was living in California at the time, and where like a rundown fixer upper is like $700,000. So
Yeah.
I was like,
Unbelievable
well,
prices.
that's
Yeah.
not going to really happen. And so I started looking at more passive ways to invest if I couldn't do that as a full-time gig, because I was employed, so therefore only had time to do it on the side. And the more that I dove into some of those episodes, most of them are about residential real estate, single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, quads, whatever it happens to be, and small landlords. Every now and then that have on an individual who was more on the commercial real estate side,
Yeah.
be it mobile home parks or self-storage or apartment buildings, multifamily. And I always found those particularly fascinating. And there was a scalability on the commercial side that did not seem to exist on the residential side, be it for management or repairs or financing. Like it just seemed like it was more scalable, if you will.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
And so I was like, well, if I'm going to get into one of these things, might as well get into the one that seems to be more scalable, because a lot of the people who got into multifamily apartment buildings or whatnot, a lot of them started in single family homes, and almost to the T, all of them said, we wish we'd just gone multifamily sooner. Like, we
Okay.
wish we'd skipped it over. Like, even if you have 10 single family homes, it doesn't really prepare you for what you're going to need to know here. So you might as well just start. So I was like, okay. And, there's a whole other world that we could talk about there. But so apartment buildings became what I became fascinated with. And then there's an oversimplification is there's two routes to investing in apartment buildings. There's the active investor route and the passive investor route.
Mhm.
And I'm the passive investor route. It'd be great one day to be the active investor, but the active investor is the individual who, to give big examples, let's say somebody's going to buy a 300 unit apartment building in Dallas, Texas, and it cost $50 million to purchase this thing. And so, here's my handy dandy calculator. And so, 50, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 times 0.35. Maybe they got to put 35% down. So they need to raise $17.5 million
Yes.
to purchase this apartment building. And most apartment buildings aren't owned by just like Jeff Bezos, like one crazy rich individual. Most of them are owned by people who are most likely wealthy, but we're not talking Jeff Bezos. What they do is, getting back to what we said before, they have a network, and they, create the business plan and, where this asset, this 300 unit building, where is it and why is it a hidden gem, and why are compared to the comparable properties in the local submarket, why is this one underperforming, either based upon poor management or below market rents, or doesn't have the amenities, whatever it happens to be. But it's a underperforming asset that, if procured for the proper price and enough care, love, attention, and repairs and money are put into it, you can bring it back up to, equal or excel its peers, and you've therefore increased the value of it. And then you either hold on to it or, sell it in 5 years for a profit, whatever it happens to be. Well, that individual, that active apartment syndicator, he's at the top of the pyramid managing that huge process, managing all the financing, all the repairs, all the investors, all the lawyers, all the,
So much
security
stuff.
and exchange commissions, and the whole 9 yards. And they also go out there and have to raise, the money, that 17,500, which could be in, every apartment syndicator does it differently. Some, like the upper end ones, like you can't invest less than $100,000. Some of them are 50, some of them are $25,000, some of them are 10. Like, it's just different, and they have to do this. So as a passive, you get on the list of some of these apartment syndicators that, ideally you have done your due diligence and found that they are reputable, capable, competent professionals that have a track record of doing this right and doing it well, managing this huge enterprise well, and delivering the promised returns to their investors.
Okay.
And, and then you look at the offering memorandum, if they are, looking at a building, for example, in Dallas, Texas, and you then have to do your due diligence and look at, why is this submarket, is it really what they say? And are jobs coming or going? Is the population increasing or decreasing? Is the cost of living this? What big companies are in the area, et cetera, et cetera. And fact check it to make sure that you truly believe that that's the case. And, if they're saying that this place is run down and it's the units are $600 per month, but the average unit is $750 in the area, and they're 100, so they're 150 below the current market value. Like, why is that?
Yeah.
And is it realistic and fair, quite frankly, because it's not fair. People aren't going to pay it.
Yeah.
Is it
Right.
fair to think that it could be 750? And so there's a lot that you got to go into that. And if you do think that it makes sense and the business plan makes sense, and you like the track record of the syndicator and all that, and you have the capital to invest, then you invest your capital. And depending upon the structure of the deal, they're usually 5-year holds.
Okay.
And 5 years to turn the building around, if you will. And then you might get a certain percentage each month or at the end or whatnot. And it just depends on what each syndicator offers, and are you happy with those terms or whatnot, and what's your, as any other investment, your risk tolerance. But that became fascinating to me because it was something that I could understand.
Okay. That was gonna be my
Compared to
first question. Was
stocks.
it seemed like for someone who's never like, we own a home. This is our house, so I know how that part works. But a
Right.
lot of people I've talked to that listen to this have wanted to get in real estate, but maybe never have. What you just explained, I mean, that to me sounds like you know a lot about it. To be honest, like, it sounds like you have a great like general understanding of like how it all works. How do you like get all that information though? Is it a lot of podcasts and reading and talking to
Yes.
people? Okay.
A lot of
Yeah.
podcasts, a lot of reading, and then also involved in a like multifamily commercial real estate like mentorship program
Love it. Okay.
to really just get my education on point and make sure before I invested in something to the best of my ability, I understood the landscape, and so that I could not make a dumb decision with money that I was choosing to either invest somewhere or put, clothing on my children's back.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
wanted to
Yeah.
make
It's
sure that
important.
it was done intelligently. But it made it makes more sense to me than the stock market, although I'm invested in there as well, because in general, like something like an apartment building, it's not emotional.
Yeah.
Whereas the stock market, to some degree, seems to ride on emotion, which is
Yeah.
terrifying and nerve wracking. I mean, uh, where I can look at this physical asset, look at its location, look at the square footage, I can look at the amenities, I can look at the parking, I
You
can look
touch
at
and
the
feel it.
pool,
Yeah.
I can look at the year that it was built, the whole 9 yards, and then I can look at the comparable properties in the area that are of the same square footage, of the same building class, of the same everything, of the same driving distance to major employers, and I can say, yeah, this is a hidden gem. This is undervalued. This is a good price. Or I can be like, no, you're crazy. Like the other buildings are better for a lower price, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so there's an actual track record. Then you can figure out like, okay, we're going to improve the units. Well, this is how much countertops cost. Like it's a real number, and it's not made up, and these
Yeah.
will be the costs, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas stock, I remember watching like a Joe Rogan podcast one time, and he had Elon Musk on.
One of his most popular, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
while Elon Musk was on there, I think he like smoked some weed or something, or
Yeah.
did something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And the next day, Tesla stock plummeted.
Yes. It like
So
crashed. Yeah.
regardless of your um,
Which obviously has
put,
nothing to do with how many
right, that's
cars
it.
they
Regardless
made.
of your
Nothing. Yeah.
political leanings or any feelings about marijuana, that has nothing to do with Tesla cars.
Right. Yeah.
And so
Crazy, right?
that doesn't happen in apartment buildings.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. That makes
Like
right. Yeah.
that's my point. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I buy the stock. I'm like, I think it's great. And the next day, the owner does something in his personal life, utterly and completely not related to running the company, which maybe they're a beast at and they do fantastic.
Yeah.
And now my stock's worth less. I don't like
Right.
that.
And well, it was crazy was then 3 days later, it was the highest it's ever been. So it went
Right.
like
It's
from no,
bizarre.
it just, yeah. 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 Yeah.
Bizarre. So again, to me, that's why these made sense. Like these were more, once you understood the language and the terminology and the due diligence, it's more just a math equation.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
And
sense.
if you
Yeah.
do the math, the math, where
Sure.
sometimes stocks, like, yeah, okay, they're a math equation. If you can see like this historically is what this is sold for, it's 10% lower. That seems like a good deal, as long as you don't know anything else that the business is doing squirrely. But then, like, then who knows? That might not be the case next week. Suddenly the math is different.
If yeah, if the CEO goes on the podcast and smokes weed, you never
Right.
know. Yeah.
So that became my initial, that's how I started to go down that path. It all started with the Bigger Pockets podcast, started with me reading more books, getting more education and learning about the asset class, and then starting to dabble in it as a passive investor.
Got it. Okay. Love that. And then maybe for people too, I actually have had one other person, one of my good buddies does this exact same thing. He's newer into it, but he's really into it. And so from a passive perspective, like you talked about the active side of it, and especially the person at the top of the pyramid. I mean,
Mhm.
it's their full-time job probably, or at least,
Absolutely.
a
Yep.
big part of their day. For the passive person, what are some of the things that you talked about doing your due diligence and making sure the math checks out, and then if you decide to go forward, you make the investment, you become part of, the group of investors that funds the purchase of this
Hmm.
building. Then what does it look like after that? Like what's is it weekly, monthly, quarterly? Like what's kind of like, are you just getting information back on it? Are you
I
doing
mean,
any work after that?
largely no. Largely,
Yeah.
it's you're in the back of the plane and the pilot's flying it.
Got it. Okay. Love
I
it.
mean, and once a month, you might get whatever your distribution is, or it might be quarterly, just depending upon how the deal was structured to begin with. And then most of the syndicators as well will give a monthly property update to let you know what's going on with that property. And they send you all the financials and rent rolls and all that stuff, to look through if you
Got it.
so want. But they could say,
So you always have access to the finances.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, it's open book, which is
Got it.
great. It's
That's great.
transparent, and they'll just keep you abreast of, hey, we purchased this fictitious 300 unit building where, whatever, 8 months in, 50 units have been renovated. On those 50 units, are we making our projected rents? Are we not making our projected rents? If so, are we above? Are we below? Like, so
Yeah.
all that just kind of takes place in the monthly recaps.
Okay. And then as the passive side of it, um, at least from my understanding, you're usually set up with some guarantees, right? Like at least like a return, like a percent, or is that not necessarily always the
Not
case?
necessarily. I mean, there can be a preferred return that they ideally would like to hit,
Okay.
but they also have the authority to change that,
Okay.
which they should, in my opinion. That might seem weird to some of your listeners. So, for example, I was involved in a few of these properties, still am, but I get into them before coronavirus and unemployment went through the roof and all that, right? And so,
Yes.
bang, this hits. People are losing jobs. I even as a passive investor, some of the lead syndicators froze distributions to passive investors. Like, hey, we want to be cash heavy right now because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if rent's going to be paid, but we still need to pay our mortgage.
Yeah. Right.
Even if the tenants aren't paying, the owner needs to pay,
Yeah. Right.
right? And so we need to be cash heavy right now. And that was 100% the right call. Like, I actually would have been furious if they paid me my monthly distribution. I would have felt that was actually reckless and negligent to be in charge of the project and make that decision. Like, the right decision was freeze distributions, wait this out, see what happens. And if we're in a good position that makes good fiscal and business sense, we'll turn distributions back on.
Because instead of acting in favor of the investors, they acted in favor of the business and the health
Correct.
of the
Yep.
project.
Which
Yeah.
benefits everybody.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Okay. Got it. Okay. So there is some risk. There can be risk in
Oh,
that. I mean,
absolutely.
COVID's
Yep.
hopefully a once in a lifetime thing,
Yep.
but that's a good example of how it can be. Got it.
and
Okay.
and there is, you don't execute the business plan properly. It's poor management. Maybe you were off in your projected costs. I mean, all that's true. But even if all of that's true, you still have some slice of a large part of real estate with a physical building
Yeah.
that will always have some intrinsic value. Like, a stock might go to zero.
Yeah. Right. You can go bankrupt
15,
and lose all your
15
shares.
acres of land in Dallas is not going to go to zero.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
no, good
so
point. Good point. Is
so
there
there's
now on the
some.
flip side of that? I think the one thing that I've read a lot, and I know people ask this question is with with like this passive type of real estate investing, um, how do you ever go see the actual like site building? Is it all remote? Like, how does that part work? 'Cause I think a lot of people are like, this could be a huge investment of something I've never seen, and it feels scary, or just don't
You
know.
certainly can. I have not.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially with all the wonderful things available with Google Maps, and but you certainly can.
Absolutely.
And since people from around the country will be investing in these things, there's undoubtedly some folks who are local on the ground and can do that as well. And the syndicators will post, if they'll schedule walkthroughs, and you're more than
Oh, okay.
welcome to go if you so desire. So I just haven't taken part in that.
Okay, got it. And then, so this sounds like something you're really interested in, but you also talked about, having a 401k, you do have some money in the market. How do you, and I always say, I don't hear I talk in nauseum about diversification. It's like my favorite word to use. Warren Buffett has drilled into me. I just think like it's fun talking to someone like you because I personally have always wanted to get into real estate, and I think this type of real estate investing is the type of way I would want to get involved. But I have yet to do it. Just investing in our own home. That's our only
Hmm.
real estate we own. Um, how do you like to think about the weight? So like, how much do you like percentage wise? How much do you like to keep in like a real estate versus money market, cash? Do you ever think about all that, or is it more of just
Yeah.
opportunistic type of thing?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I'm a big fan of having an emergency fund, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, so and I would say ideally a minimum 6 month emergency fund, where, just heaven forbid, everything comes to a grinding halt, that everything's fine for half a year.
Yeah.
So that first and foremost, and then above and beyond that, it's funny. This is, again, much as my kids try to keep me from being a workaholic, um, my wife also tries to bring balance to me, because I'm a very simple human being with regards to my wants and needs, if you'll say that. Not that I'm a monk, but like I drive my wife crazy on my birthday or Christmas. She's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "I don't want anything."
Yeah. I'm the
Like, I
same way.
actually really don't. I'm not just saying that. Like, I don't want anything. I don't want a watch. I don't want a computer. I don't want shoes. I don't want a jacket. Like, I've I've got shoes. I'm fine. Like, I don't know. I don't want anything, and
Sure.
drives her bonkers. And so I would invest every penny that I had.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I wouldn't take a vacation. Like, I would just, like, I like investing, and I think it's fun, and I would do that. And I wouldn't go to Disneyland,
Sure. Okay.
and my kids would be sad. So,
Yeah.
so my wife helps balance it, like, okay, that's great. Happy that you're doing this. Happy we're going to do some investing, but we also have to set aside something so that our family can live and have some experiences and enjoy, and not just, okay, there's food in the fridge and the heat's on, and that's great, but we need to do things a few times a year so that we build memories. And, like, okay, yeah, you're right. So, we allocate a certain amount of money to do that, and to go out as a family and have fun, and
Yeah.
to make sure that we have a 6 month, emergency fund. And then we're also just very big on, like, not carrying debt. Like, we obviously have a mortgage, but I don't like, we don't carry credit card debt. Like, I think that's, if you can get rid of that evil in your life, you really should,
Yeah.
first and foremost. Um, in keeping with the whole, I don't want a fancy watch. Like, I like investing, and I like finances because I think it leads to freedom and security.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
Right.
what I find attractive. I don't care about a fancy car or a watch. I care about freedom in my life,
Love
security
that.
in my
Yeah.
life.
That's great.
I drive an 11-year-old truck with a cracked windshield.
That's the way.
I could most certainly afford a newer truck, but my truck gets me from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to just waste my money on a depreciating object when it still works, and
Yeah.
I could put that income into something that ideally will get a return. One day that truck will die and I'll replace it, but not till then. And so that is kind of how I roll. Keep the family happy, make sure that we're not in credit card debt, all bills are paid, make sure we have an emergency fund, make sure there's some fun money left aside so the family can go out and do things. And then anything above and beyond that, let's try to be smart with it.
Yeah.
Be that through real estate or the stock market.
Love it. No, I appreciate that. I think that is a great lesson learned. And I think it's so nice to like break it down into just a simple, easy way to think about it. I mean, that's just pretty simple cut. Like that's a
Hmm.
great way for people to get into it and think about it.
Yep. Is it extra? If so, we're investing it.
Right. Yeah. Love it. I'm the same way. Love that. I think I always tell people I'm also a big proponent of, treating savings, investing, any of those vehicles as just like non-negotiables. And I not to like bring it back to CrossFit, but like,
Hmm.
it's something, it's part of the day that, if exercising is something where you're like, it's happening no matter what, I have to just get it done. I have to schedule it and do it.
Right.
I always think the same for like investing and saving. It's like, just take it off the table immediately when you get paid or however you want to
Yep.
do it. That way you don't worry about it. And then it's done and it's paid for and it's building itself. It's working for you.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like I have to do that because I feel like I feel like I pulled my head out of my butt financially too late in life. And so
Okay.
I need to be as diligent as I can now. And if I started at 22, it would be different, but I didn't,
Yeah.
and so, and that's just another thing I'm going to try to bestow upon my kids as they grow up, that, I didn't get growing up, was the whole talk about finances and investing and, assets and liabilities and et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So yeah, hopefully they grow up with a little bit more intelligence in that arena.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure they will. I always think, whenever I talk to anybody who has an interest in it and even has a plan, like I think one of the most misconceived things is like there's a perfect plan. Like there's not a perfect plan, right?
Hmm.
But but having a plan and just sticking to it and then learning and pivoting and keep going. I mean, again, it's just like always having different modalities and exercise and changing the way you're doing it. It's like there's a lot of similarities in those two things, but with investing, whether it's real estate, money market, cash, you know, I think just getting a game plan down in Excel or on paper, and just working with whoever it is, your spouse, yourself, and just building and working on it, and always having like that next goal you're going towards helps a lot.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and I would also, it was in some book that I read. I can't remember what it was. It was a long time ago, but it gave like an Excel spreadsheet form to track your net worth,
Love it.
all these, all the different things that you should. And it made a great point. It's like, look, it doesn't matter if your net worth is $5,000 or it's $5 million. It doesn't matter. You want to be aware of what it is, and you want to
Yeah.
be aware of whether it's increasing or decreasing, because if you're just guessing, you'll probably be shocked by what the numbers actually say.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I did it. And I was shocked at at that time, how poor it was. I was like, oh, I haven't been financially wise. I need to
Yeah.
start making some different decisions. It's under that other saying that, what gets measured matters,
Right.
right? And if you're not giving something measurement and focus, and you're just kind of guessing or hoping that it's going to work out, it's probably not. And so again, doesn't matter what the net worth is. I think there's value in getting it down on paper and just seeing what it is. And it's a helpful metric because, for example, um, 2 or 3 weeks ago, a house came on the market that my wife and I had an interest in. It's still in our same neighborhood. We would have moved like a quarter of a mile,
Okay. Nice.
but it had his like a whatever cooler backyard. So we're like, oh man, this would be really cool. We should do this. And um, started running the numbers because everything's just a math problem.
Yep.
And I thought I knew how it was going to shake out. And there's nothing wrong with the house that we live in. So that was a great thing. Like we had under no pressure to move. It's just like, oh, wouldn't it be nice? And I put all the numbers into this net worth thing of like, what would our new mortgage be? What would the down payment have to be? Well, it crunched it all. And it was actually a financially poor decision to purchase that house.
Right.
Like it just negatively affected our net worth. And I was like, oh, well, we're not going to do that. And that was it. And she saw it too. And she's like, nope.
Got it.
So,
Isn't that funny? How true is that? I mean, I'm a finance person by trade, so I think about everything like that, but it really is true. Most things in life are just a math problem. And if you sit down to
correct.
like take the data, the numbers, whatever it is, and just take your time, crunch it out, usually that gives you a better versus just like winging it and be like, hope this new house, hope we can pay for it. Like
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
last thing you want to try to do. I think a lot of people unfortunately go down that route that like, let's just jump, we'll make it work. And which is, sometimes you do, but you could also
Sure.
not.
It's now not a running joke, but I've got into my kid's head now where they'll ask something, it doesn't matter what it is. How did somebody build that bridge across the river? They'll see it. How are Teslas so fast? Whatever it is. And now I'll look at them and I'll just say, how? And they're like, oh, yes, math and science. I'm like, yes, that's the answer. The
Yeah,
answer is math and science. So
that's
you
funny.
you want to be good at math and science. You want to understand math and science because it will be your friend for the rest of your time on this planet.
That's a good piece of advice too. How true is that, right? If you are good
Mm-hmm.
at those two things, there's a lot of things that are unlocked for you.
No joke.
For sure. So Pat, thank you. This has been so much fun. I think this has been a great episode. It's been fun to get to know you and some of these different aspects that I really didn't know much about. As we like kind of wind towards the end, there's a few questions I love to ask everyone I have on here, and I know you're going to have some good answers for
Uh-oh.
these. Um, the first one, I always say book, but if you have a podcast, you've already mentioned a couple, or just a source of knowledge for all the listeners, what would be your favorite piece of knowledge that you would share?
I love the Old Capital podcast.
Love it.
It's
Okay.
it's fantastic. It's a total commercial real estate nerd podcast. I mean,
Oh, cool.
beyond a
Okay.
shadow of a doubt, but it's great. It's fantastic. So that would be the podcast. And then a book that I'm currently reading, which I'm loving, is Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. It's a home run. In my opinion, he talks about a topic that could be very dry and boring,
Okay.
but he does it in a way that's just plain English and very relatable. It's a beast. It's like 650 pages, but it's actually an enjoyable read.
And that's
And
all it comes
and
down to with finance.
yes,
Yeah.
and I was shocked I knew that I didn't know a lot about economics, but I was shocked at how little I actually knew.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
very, it's a great book.
Economics was like my worst subject in college for some reason. But it's
Oh,
funny because now I care so much about it that I think then I
mm-hmm.
just didn't understand the importance. And so that sounds like a great book. I've not read that one. I'll add
It's
that to my
fantastic.
list. Um, so you obviously are a very busy guy. You've got, you've had multiple jobs, you're running a business, you're a family man. What tools do you use to, plan goals and accomplish tasks and like plan your day? Some people, have pen and paper. Some people it's a journal. Some people it's apps. Do you have anything that you like rely on to just like get shit done?
I've got a tremendous stack of just old school post-it notes here on my desk,
Love
and
it.
so the quick things that just jump into my head, they get jotted down on a post-it note.
Oh,
These are the
okay.
random ideas pile right
Oh,
here.
wow. I love that. That's a lot of
So
ideas there.
yeah, and a lot of them are like podcast topics, like the things that I'll see. I'm like, all right, I should talk about that.
Yes.
So quick thought goes to the post-it note. And then the two places that I actually get things done is I do still have an old school, just like paper to-do list that,
Okay.
get prioritized and checked off or circle filled in if it's in progress. And then other than that, everything makes its way into my the calendar on my iPhone,
Okay.
and that's just the God sent life.
Yeah.
I
It
can
really
just
is,
look
isn't
at
it?
and see what's happening. So that's, you know, old school paper and post-it notes, and then technology on the iPhone. And those
Got
are
it.
those are the ways things happen.
The combo. I'm really similar to
Hmm.
that. Yeah. I always joke around with my friends. I'm like, if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening. That's like
Completely.
it's life for me. I can only imagine once
Yep.
you have kids, how extra important that would become.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So those are the two questions I love to always ask. Really two last quick ones. One, you probably, I don't know if anyone knows this for sure, but I heard a sneak peek of what his thoughts are. What do you think on a Matt coming back for a sixth try at the CrossFit Games next year? If you had a guess,
Yeah. I mean, you saying if he will come back or if he'll win?
if he'll come back to go individual.
I mean, did he recently say that he wouldn't?
He was very vague on like what his thoughts are, but I think he's good about doing that anyway, of just like
I
let's keep it interesting and see what the future holds. He's so good
I
about like
would
living in the
think
now too,
so.
I think. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah,
like, oh, we'll figure it out when it's time.
I would think so. I also don't. I mean, nobody wants to be that person that stays wherever they are too long, and
Right.
it's just
Sure.
a sad show of, like,
Yeah. You've been here for a
the
long time.
gazelle slowly dying
Yeah.
out of the, but he's nowhere near there,
Yeah.
and he only appears to. I don't know how he feels between the years. I don't know if he's just like worn out and like, oh, I'm just over this. Like, who knows that but him? But from an outsider's perspective, looking at him, shocking as it is, he's the best by far, and he appears to still be getting better. So nothing about that tells me that he shouldn't come back from a third party observation standpoint, and that would only give him another year of being the man and
Yeah.
winning the purse and getting sponsorships and having the name and the clout, which makes his life propel forward as well. So I would think the answer is a yes.
Okay. Got it. Love it. No, I love that. And then last one, how do people follow you? How do people get involved with CrossFit Linchpin, all the fun stuff? And then obviously I'll add all of this to the show notes too, so people can find you in CrossFit Linchpin.
Yeah, the website is crossfitlinchpin.com. And then on Instagram, we're CrossFit Linchpin. And those are the two best ways to do it by far. And you can either go to our Instagram page and click the link in the bio, or if you go to our website, there's all kinds of information there. We've got a frequently asked questions page. You can click on the private track and learn about what we do and what we offer. And then we've got a podcast too, Linchpin Conversations. If you want to geek out on CrossFit stuff, that's what we do.
It's a great
And
one.
yeah, that's about it, man.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, Pat, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to come on here. It was a great conversation, and I wish you the best with CrossFit Linchpin, and I'll be following along. So good luck.
I appreciate it, Shane. Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm glad we got it. We got it done, and hope you have a great day.
You too.
Awesome. See ya.